Welcome to Sound the Horne Sports Show. I'm so excited to host this groundbreaking program that will broaden the Jackson sports scene's awareness regionally and nationally. My goal is to highlight sports in Jackson, the state of Mississippi, and nationally by utilizing my 25 years of Division I athletic administration knowledge, and my guests will be experienced leaders in sports. The guests on the show will share a behind-the-scenes, unique, and informative glance of the world of sports. Please join me every Monday and Friday from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. on WeBelieveDigital.com. Welcome to the Sound the Horne Sports Show. So glad to be here with a good friend of mine. My guest today is going to be Mr. Gary Burley. He's a former NFL player, and he also is the founder of Pro Start Academy in Birmingham, Alabama. Gary, how are you doing today?
I am very well, sir. Thank you for having me on today.
Well, you have an interesting background, so I'm sure our fans are going to truly enjoy our conversation. And as I do with all of our guests as we kick out the first quarter, if you would, just tell me a little bit about yourself, your hometown, and the high school you went to.
Well, I am originally from Columbus, Ohio, and my dad decided to build a house for us, and we moved to a little town called Urbancrest. And I was riding down the street one day on my bike, and this station wagon pulled over and told me that he wanted me to play football. And it happened to be my coach, Jackie Knitzen. Well, I started playing football in the 5th grade and ended up going to high school and junior high school, and on to the NFL through the University of Pittsburgh. And that's how I got my start in pro football.
Well, during one of our conversations, you shared with me an interesting tidbit that I think that will be good for individuals to have a good understanding of. Tell them about this camp you went to and some of the players that kind of inspired you to think a little hard about being a great athlete in sports.
Well, you know, I was never a recruited athlete, and my mom, God rest her soul, sent me to Ohio State for a football camp. And I met Jack Tatum and John Hicks, 2 Ohio State football players. And after beating them in a foot race, they asked me where I was going to college. And I told them Westinghouse. Now, they thought I was talking about Westinghouse College. I was talking about Westinghouse Appliance Manufacturers because my dad told me that if I didn't go to college, I was going to work. So after they stopped laughing, they adopted me. And they trained me, and they introduced me to their professors and introduced me to the ACT and all that kind of thing. And, you know, came to all my games, football and basketball. And those were my early mentors. So I said, one day, I'm going to do the same thing for other kids that, you know, are caught between a bubble and don't know how to get to the next level. I'm going to put something together, and I decided to come up with the Pro Start Academy. And that's what we've been. We've been doing that for 14 years. Okay.
Well, I thought that was an interesting, conversation that we had, and I want to make sure that was shared because we never know who make impacts in our lives. And there are a number of people that we meet from time to time that truly can inspire us. And when you shared that story with me about being at the camp, and I think it speaks volumes for a lot of athletes too. You sometimes have to put yourself in the right spot to have an opportunity, to receive an opportunity. And by you going to camp, that gave you and exposed you to some individuals that were life-changing for you.
Exactly. And that's what we teach all of our kids in Pro Start. We teach them how to, first thing they need to do is develop a 2-minute resume, just in case they meet somebody that's important, that could be important in their lives. And we teach them how to get that 2-minute resume going so they're not sitting there jabbering and stumbling over their words. And we teach them how to present themselves at an early age. So if you can imagine what it would be like at age 12, learning how to present yourself like that, but also learning how you can invest monies and things, be introduced to investments of monies and cultivating relationships. So that's what we do with our kids.
Well, I think that's I think it's great because so many of us don't get those opportunities at early age, and what we learn in those formative years usually what is gets us over the hump as we get older. And if you could, going back to your high school days, what sports did you participate in other than football? Or was football the only sport you participated in?
I'm sorry, you were interrupted. Would you say that again? Would you repeat that?
I said, when you were in high school, I know you participated in football, but were there any other sports that you participated in high school?
Oh yeah, I did track, I did basketball, and wrestling.
Okay.
And I really learned that in order to be good at anything, you've got to put in the work. And I learned that at an early age, and learning how to work out, learning how to spend quality time off the field as well as on the field. That's what helped me get through.
How big is wrestling up in the Midwest?
I do what now? I'm sorry.
How big is wrestling in the Midwest?
I really couldn't tell you because it was big in high school because we had a lot of guys that wanted to do it. So I decided to do it. I had no interest in wrestling, but once the coach saw me, saw my athletic ability, he thought that might be something I want to do. So I tried it. I did it for a year, and that was it. But they have a lot of tournaments in Ohio for wrestling.
And the reason I say that because I know that Ohio area is really a Big Ten area, and the Big Ten is very, very saturated with a lot of top quality wrestling programs, and that's a sport I know while serving at Alcorn. A lot of HBCUs have been approached about trying to add that as a sport within the programs that they sponsor. So interest is not that as much in the South, but I do know in the Midwest and up on the Northeast, it's a very it's a high participation rate in that sport. One thing I would like for you to do is let me know or just kind of share with our guests what was your deciding factor in attending the University of Pittsburgh.
I'm sorry, one more time because you're breaking up on me.
What was your deciding factor in attending the University of Pittsburgh?
Well, I tell you, Coach Johnny Majors sent a couple of recruits recruiters to junior college where I was at. I went to WCJC Junior College in Houston, Texas. And after being a non-recruited athlete, I ended up being a 2-year All-American in junior college. So I got the attention of a lot of colleges. Well, Johnny Majors sent a couple of guys out to see me, and they tried to recruit me, but he was at Iowa State at the time. So I went to a recruiting trip at Iowa State, and there I met Coach Jackie Sherrill. So Coach Sherrill was telling me, it's a funny story. Here's how I met Coach Sherrill. I was in the steam room, and I heard these guys, and they're talking about getting Gary Burley as a recruit because if we got him, we'd have the best defensive lineman to come out of junior college in the last 10 years. So I'm sitting here listening to them, and they don't know that it's me sitting there next to them. So when the smoke clears, Coach Sherrill goes, "You're a pretty big guy." I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "Where do you play football at?" I said, "At Wharton Junior College." He said, "Well, do you know that Burley kid?" I said, "Yeah, I know him very well." So we kept talking, and I said, "Coach, I can't continue to pretend like I'm not Gary Burley. I am Gary Burley, but I've made a decision. I want to move closer to home. I've had enough of being away from my parents and everybody, and I want them to be able to see me play." So he said, "Okay, I understand." And then 3 weeks later, Coach Johnny Majors took the job at Pittsburgh. So all of a sudden, I get this call back from Jackie Sherrill and Jim Dyer, who was my defensive line coach, and they said, well, do you want to come to Pitt because that's closer to home and that's what you said you wanted to do? So I said, of course, I'll come down for a visit and see what's going on. And I did. And then I ended up coming to the University of Pittsburgh. And that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Well, those recruiting relationships are unique. Something similar happened to me as I was recruited to come to the University of Mississippi. Bob Wetledge was the head coach, and he decided to go to the University of Texas. And that was a little too far for me, but the person he hired was Lee Hunt, who recruited me when he was at the University of Alabama, Birmingham. And when he got the job at Ole Miss, it was an easy fit for me because I had built a relationship with him, So I'm sure if we take our time and talk to a number of former athletes, we probably have some unique stories that we can share.
Definitely.
Yeah. Well,
definitely.
I know with ProStart, you have a great dialogue with your students that are there, but if you could go back to that 18-year-old Gary Burley and give him some advice now, what would that advice be?
Well, I tell you, same lessons that I'm teaching these guys today is what I wish I would have knew about earlier. I may have been able to do something different in my life, but it ended up well because I had the perfect mother and father, and I had the perfect mentors off the field as well as on the field. And I would tell my guys, just like I tell them every day, learn everything you possibly can learn about what you want to do in life. And then cultivate as many relationships as you possibly can, because that's the first thing that Coach Paul Brown told me when I was being when I got drafted to the NFL. He says, the reason why they call it the NFL is not for long. And if you don't cultivate these relationships with these people while you're playing, they're not going to know you when you get off the field. So I learned a valuable lesson at an early age and started cultivating relationships in business and learning about internships and things of this nature. So when my career was over, I was ready to move into something else, and I didn't have any wait time.
Well, I think that's great advice, and I think if you're sharing that with the young people now, there's some things that they need to really understand about relationships, and also the importance of keeping a great reputation and integrity and character. And I know as we go through the show in the latter part, as we get into the fourth quarter, I want to dig a little deeper back into ProStart, but I do think that what you're offering the young people there are truly a benefit.
Yes.
If you can, we're getting close to closing out the first quarter, but if you would, just share some of the highlights of your experiences at the University of Pittsburgh as an athlete.
Well, I'm quite sure that a lot of people that's listening to us now know who Tony Dorsett is.
Yes.
And Tony was one of my teammates at Pitt. And the first thing that I remember about Pitt is we lined up to do 40-yard dashes. And the defensive lineman and the offensive lineman ran first. And then we were on the sideline, and we were watching Tony run. Now, Tony had a pair of high-top Chuck Taylor Converses on AstroTurf, and he ran a 4.340. And the thing that I remember most about that is that I saw these coaches I was on the other side of the field, and I saw them, they couldn't believe their stopwatches. And they kept looking at their watches, and they looked at Tony. Looked at the watches, looked at Tony. And then finally they just said 4.3. And that was just something else, man, to see this guy run like that on AstroTurf. And at that point in time, I said, we are in for something special with this kid, because he's an unbelievable runner. And as we went through the year, it proved me right. He was an unbelievable runner. He had a great college career, a great NFL career, and now he's a Hall of Famer. So I tell you, that one day shed light on his whole career for us.
Well, as you think back, what were some of the things that, if you were standing on the sideline and you saw him do, a run or, eluding a tackle, which probably was the incident that stood out the most when you were in college, just saying, I don't believe he did that?
Well, I tell you what, we all, no matter what we were doing on the field, when we came off the field, our eyes were focused on Tony Dorsett because they called him Hawk, and that was because of his eyes when he ran. He could see as well sideways as he could straight forward. And you could see him running. You could look at his helmet and see those big eyes looking from side to side and seeing the whole field. And I thought at the time, I said, wow, that's amazing. Because he's running directly at people and they still can't get to him. And I thought that was the most amazing thing that I've ever seen. I've never seen anybody run like that before. Now, when I turned to pros, you could see some guys that had that same talent, but nobody like Tony is. And that's one of the things that sticks out in my head, watching this kid for 2 years run like that. And when he amazed a lot of people in the pros, I said, I saw this already. I saw this 3 years ago. This kid is unbelievable. And he was.
I always like asking former athletes that have been on, good teams, great teams, and ask them about the teammates, because there's always things that kind of stand out. And for me, as a fan, just watching, him at Pitt, and I get, with you there as well, and what Johnny Majors was doing there, and the success that had come around, and just the success that he had in the professional ranks. It's amazing just to see how accomplished he was, not just in college, but also in the pros. And those are the things that I think that are so spectacular. So right now, Gary, we're going to put a pin in this first quarter.
Okay.
It's been great sharing some of the story that you have, so I'm going to give you a little time to gather your thoughts on them, and we're going to give our sponsors an opportunity to be recognized, and we'll be right back.
Sounds good.
Have something to say? Do you want your voice heard? Join the We Believe Global lineup. Be the star of your own show. For more info, call 800-492-5186, option number 1, or visit online at webelieve.global.
Welcome back to the second quarter with my good friend, Gary Burley. I found out something new about Tony Dorsett. Now I can just think about him being the Hulk. But I think that that was a great story that was shared regarding Tony. If you would, you mentioned Johnny Majors, and you talked a little bit about him, but what kind of impact did Coach Majors have on your life?
Oh, my God. Coach Majors, Coach Sherrill, I can't begin to tell you that they were like father figures to me when I came to the University of Pittsburgh, because I knew what it was like to have a great father and a mother in your life. And once I met these two guys and they found out what my talent was, they said, okay, you got all the talent in the world, but what are you going to do when your talent runs out on the football field? And that stuck with me. That they cared enough about me to think about, after I leave the University of Pittsburgh, after I leave the NFL, if I make it to the NFL. And they made sure that we had every opportunity, that I had every opportunity to be successful in life. And I will never forget that. Coach Majors comes down to play. Well, he came down to play in my golf tournament. And he had the attention. I mean, he hasn't coached in 20 years, but he had the attention of everybody here at the golf tournament because of he was the same person in 1973 as he was before he passed away. And that stuck out with me. And Jackie Sherrill's the same way. Coach Sherrill was, he recorded a video for me to ask for a kidney. I'm a kidney transplant recipient. And Coach Sherrill did this video for me and helped me get a new kidney. So I have a relationship with my coaches that are still alive from the University of Pittsburgh today as we speak.
Well, I had a chance to experience Coach Sherrill here in the state of Mississippi. He coached at Mississippi State, but then also coached at Texas A&M. And then with Coach Majors coaching at the University of Tennessee as well. They've left lasting impacts. I don't know if you will find many coaches nowadays that have that kind of impact. You know, back in the day, I'm a little younger than you are, but for the most part, coaches have more time to spend with their players. It's kind of limited now, so some of the interaction that you had with your coaches at that time and myself, you don't have an opportunity to have that kind of engagement, to build those relationships like you talked about a little earlier. And I think it's a little something that's lost because you go to college not only to get an education but prepare for the rest of your life. And I think through sports and through relationships, I know it's been beneficial for me. That's how you and I connected. But I also think that it is great just for student athletes in particular to understand that there's more to life than that sport, because there's life after sport, because that ball does go flat.
Exactly. And I tell you, the closest thing that I've experienced as far as coaches go since I left college was Coach Nick Saban. And I met Coach Saban, and at the time, we were doing, Bootsy Collins and I were doing a tree planting ceremony to commemorate the 50th anniversary of the Civil Rights Movement. And I met Coach Saban through his assistant. And I asked Coach Saban to do a video that would promote what we were doing. And I had no, I never met him before, like I mentioned, and I had no idea that he would do it. But if you don't get, you don't ask. And so anyway, I asked Coach Saban. He did the video for me, and we became associates, and anytime that I ran into him, he remembered who I was, and we talked about the video and that type of thing. And as I was saying in the beginning, he's the closest thing that I've ever had an opportunity to meet after my career, because he taught the basic fundamentals of the sport. And a lot of guys do what's new, and, I can't blame them for that. That's what they do. But if you got somebody that cares about you, teaches you the basic fundamentals of not only the sport, but also the basic fundamentals of life and how to advance your career off the field as well as on the field, those are the type of people that are successful. And Coach Saban is probably the most successful football coach in the history of college football. And I can see why, because I watch him with his kids, and he cares about his kids. And that's something that can't be taught, I guess. I don't know.
Well, I think the thing that you pointed out, from the outside looking in, Saban might look like he's a taskmaster, but if you watch his practices and you watch how he prepares, and if you take a look and see, he doesn't have that many kids going in the transfer portal. He does something right, and a lot of people are emulating him now. And I think that when you take a look at, particularly in the modern era, nobody can touch Nick Saban for what he's done at Alabama and just transformed it for them to become a perennial power every year.
Well, I tell you, I haven't seen anything like it. I grew up in Ohio, as I mentioned. I watched Woody Hayes. I watched Coach Majors as I was in college. And like I say, I have seen nothing like Coach Saban before because he's got a systematic approach to doing everything. And he calls it his process. And I just can't understand why more coaches don't follow his footsteps. Is that jealousy or is that just they want to do it their way? I don't know. But I know his way works. And it works year after year after year after year after year with national championships and runner-up for national championships. So if it was me, I'd be following what this guy is doing and teaching my kids how to be successful off the field as well as on the field. But, you know, I'm not a head coach, so I don't know what goes through their minds. But I hope they get it one day.
Well, he has a formula. You know, and like you said, he works that process and he works it well. But I want to circle back now. You threw out a name that kind of, you know, the little hair I have on my head made it stand up when you said Bootsy Collins. Now, how well you know Bootsy Collins?
I'm sorry, you broke up on me a little bit.
I said you mentioned a name that kind of made the hair stand up on my head, a little bit I do have. And that's Bootsy Collins. And I'm saying, how did you and Bootsy Collins become connected?
Well, Bootsy and I have been friends for quite some time, and you know, playing in Cincinnati, that's Bootsy's hometown, and I used to go watch him in concert. And the whole time that I was playing in Cincinnati, I didn't meet him, and I finally got a chance to meet him here, and I asked him to be the Grand Marshal for the Labor Day Classic here in Birmingham. And he agreed to do it and came down. And I can't begin to tell you how great of a guy this guy is. I mean, he does some of everything for some of everybody. And, I just don't know where he finds the energy, but he does. So anyway, he came down here, and I introduced him to a good friend of mine who worked with my wife at Alabama Power at the time. And that was Nick Sellers. And Nick is the CEO of the World Games here. And I just found out that Bootsy is going to be the, the Grand Master of the World Games. And he's going to perform as well. So that's my relationship with Bootsy. We became friends back in 2007. And we've been friends ever since.
Yeah, when I think of Bootsy, all I can think of those shades with the stars in them. Yeah, but for those,
him and his wife are special people.
Those that are 45 and younger, they're trying to figure out who Bootsy Collins is. So I'm gonna move on.
Okay.
One thing I wanted to ask you about, you have all the rivalries. You have the Oklahoma and Texas, Oklahoma State and the University of Oklahoma, USC, UCLA. How, what scale or what would you rank when Penn and Pitt were playing, Penn State and Penn were playing? How intense was that game?
Well, I'd say that was a big rivalry, and I don't think we ever beat them when I was there. And that was like the biggest rivalry in Pennsylvania. And I tell you, we had some slug out fights, and it was amazing because when you look back on it today, and some of the guys that played in those games with Pittsburgh and Penn State, we're all still friends. We hated each other when we were there. I don't know why, but off the field, we became friends, and it was just an experience that I could never duplicate. And I watched the game today when they used to have it. Hopefully they will do that game again, but right now it doesn't look that good.
Well, when you run into conference realignments and a number of other things that are going on, those are the games that you miss out on that were very relevant, that fans across the country did not have an allegiance to either school, but was going to lock in and watch that game because we knew we were going to watch a slugfest and it was going to be something that was going to be entertaining.
I agree.
Yeah. Now, how did your time at Pitt prepare you for the NFL?
Well, I tell you, we had one of the toughest training programs ever. And to us, it was like, something that we did. We didn't know that it was an extra special training and conditioning. And that was Coach Sherrill's his main thing of teaching us that on the next level, you're going to have to be in better shape than you've ever been in your life. And he had us running all different kind of sprints and all different kind of distances and that. So when I got to the NFL, it was a piece of cake. My first year, because I was in top shape, which everybody tries to do, and I think that's one of the best things, other than cultivating the relationships. That was the best thing that I could have ever done to enter into the NFL, being in top shape, and that's what we tell all of our kids that have a dream of playing in the NFL. First thing you got to do is get your mind right. You got to be able to participate. You got to be able to be in shape. And no matter what they ask you to do, you got to be able to do it. So, those are the things that I learned at the University of Pittsburgh that helped me become a 10-year NFL veteran.
Well, I'm, when you mentioned Johnny Majors and Jackie Sherrill, and those individuals their focus was to make sure that you were going to be prepared. And if you go back and you watch their teams, they were truly prepared. I can remember what Jackie Sherrill did at Texas A&M. A good friend of mine transferred out there, and he just, he still talks about his relationship that he had with Coach Sherrill at that time.
I can imagine so.
Yeah.
I'll pick up the phone right now and call Coach Sherrill, and there he is. He's the same guy, a little grayer, but he still has the same knowledge and intellect that he's always had.
Well, I bumped into Coach Sherrill a couple of years ago, and we were at a golf tournament up in Memphis, and I stopped to just introduce myself, and then a good friend of mine, his name is Chris Osgood. Chris Osgood transferred out to play quarterback for him at Texas A&M, and it's amazing how he remembers people. And sometimes, you can't have that photographic memory, but he remembered Chris, spoke very highly of him, and I think what a lot of people don't realize, if I'm not mistaken, I think Coach Sherrill has some Mississippi roots too.
Oh yeah, that's where he's from originally.
Yeah. But I being an Ole Miss alum, we couldn't stand him until he stepped down, because he really. But his teams were prepared and they played hard. But that's one thing that I always really hope that we can get back to with our coaches and the student-athletes relationship, where there can be a better understanding of there's going to be life after this sport is over. So right now, we're going to put a pin in this second quarter, get ready for the third quarter, and after we have our response from our sponsors, we'll be right back.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Q Talicia Garrett. I am here to introduce our New South Development and Training Outreach Hour every Tuesday at 2 p.m., giving you information on how to become a part of the programs through USDA and Farm Service Agency. We can be reached at 678-779-9468. We can also be found online at newsouthoutreach.com.
COVIDsolutions.com is paving the way forward for a safer city government delivering cutting-edge biosecurity and biosafety protocols developed internationally by top virologists and scientists using an all-natural cleaning solution, killing COVID-19 on contact like no other product on the international market. For more information, please call 1-800-281-9080 or visit us online at sgecovidsolutions.com. Let sgecovidsolutions.com provide innovative rapid facilities testing and world-class state-of-the-art biorisk safety protocols for all of your coronavirus needs. Call 1-800-281-9080 or visit us online at sgecovidsolutions.com.
Do you have something to say? Do you want your voice heard? Join the We Believe Global lineup. Be the star of your own show. For more info, call 800-492-5186, option number 1, or visit online at webelieve.global.
Welcome back to the third quarter of our show, and we're visiting here with Gary Burley, the founder of Pro Start Academy over in Birmingham, Alabama, 10-year veteran of the NFL. Gary, if you can, just kind of share with us what was your feeling and your emotions when you got drafted into the NFL?
Wow. You're taking me way back. This was before they had the broadcast of the draft, and all we had was our cell phone. I mean, we didn't have cell phones at the time. All we had was our home phone. And Walter Payton, Neil Cosley, and I had all met before at a couple of All-Star games, and we exchanged numbers. And on draft day, we were calling each other back and forth. That's the only way we would know who got drafted and who didn't. So I'm calling Walter. Walter's calling Neil. Neil's calling me. And it's just a circle. And then finally, Walter gets the call. First-round pick for the Chicago Bears, 1975. Neil gets the call. First-round pick for the Oakland Raiders. Then I get my call, the third-round pick for the Cincinnati Bengals. And that day stands out because it was the first time that I experienced fear. You know, I mean, it was like, when are they going to call? When is this going to happen? What's going to happen? And then I learned that there's nothing that you can do about certain situations other than be prepared once you get there. And I learned that valuable lesson that day because you never know what's going to happen during the draft. People can trade up, you can trade down, what have you. But when I got that call, it was like, okay, life is about to change. I'll be able to do things for my parents and family that I never could do before. And I'm excited. I'm just blessed to be here. And that's what I remember.
Well, when you mentioned that you had a cell phone, I'm glad you corrected it because I didn't, in 1975, I know we didn't have any cell phones back then.
No, we did not have cell phones. I'm sorry about that.
But you know what's amazing? What do you think about now, all of the pomp and circumstance that they have now as it relates to the draft?
Well, you know, I'm proud of all those guys that are benefiting from the NFL and collegiate careers, the whole 9 yards. And I know what they're going through before the draft. Everybody looks calm and relaxed. But I know what's going on inside of them until they get that call, until they're called up on that stage. I know exactly what they're going through. And I applaud them for being able to do what they do. And I'm excited for them all.
If you would, maybe share a little bit about your rookie experience when you made it with the Bengals.
Oh, wow. Well, Paul Brown was our head coach at the time. And when he called me in for the draft, they had a meeting after we were drafted. He called me in, and he says, Gary Burley, the Pittsburgh Flash. And I go, yes, sir. And he says, what do you want to accomplish in the NFL? And I told him, I said, Coach, I just want to be the best player that I can possibly be and offer my skills and talents to this team and take us as far as I can take us. And then he says, well, that's a good start. But the second thing I want you to do is learn how to cultivate these relationships. And when I heard that word, it reminded me of what my college coach said, Johnny Majors. And I said, wow, I've heard that before, and I've got to do what this guy says, because he's now in the pros where he has all these relationships. So I need to learn as much through him as I possibly can. And that's what started my career. Once I got to Cincinnati, I made sure that I hung out with Coach Brown every day as I was working out. I've had a conversation with him, or I'd speak to him in certain ways, and we would come in his office and talk. But I guess I'm saying that to say this. That's how I ended up learning how to develop relationships off the field as well as on the field. And I will appreciate him for that for the rest of my life.
Well, I think that I'm glad that the theme of relationships keeps resonating, because people need to understand that relationships are work too. Just knowing somebody, exactly. Just knowing somebody, that doesn't mean that that's a relationship. Relationships are you communicate with them, you make sure that it's not you take. It's 100% both ways of sharing resources, knowledge, and understanding to make it a strong and robust relationship. And as you've learned through your years, and from what I've understand and how you have been able to navigate what you've been able to do, you are the epitome of what Coach Brown shared with you in making sure that you have those great relationships.
Oh, no doubt about it, man. I appreciate him every day. When I wake up and I see my beautiful wife, she's the president of Miles College here in Birmingham. And when I see what she's done, and I couple that with what I was taught, it lets me know how to be successful, how to teach these kids lessons on how to be successful. One thing I'd like to mention about that, NFL, my career, and my kids in ProStar, the first thing that I teach them, or I talk to them about when we gather for our first meeting, I ask them, what are we all going to do? What do we all want to do? And I know the answer already. Everybody thinks they're going to play pro ball. I said, okay, let me know what you're going to do with your first paycheck when you become drafted. And I said, here's the scenario. You're getting a $2 million bonus. What are you going to do with that money? And the first thing they say is, I'm going to buy my mom and them a house. I'm going to buy this. I'm going to buy that. Blah, 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 blah. On down the line. And I said, okay. I said, but think about this. You got a 2-year contract that's not guaranteed. They say, yeah. And then I say, you get hurt and can't play. What does that mean to you? I said, now think about this before you answer. I said, you got 35% taxes that come out of that money. I said, you got 10% agent fees, and so on and so on and so on. And this is what you got left with no career. What do you do? And then they're stuck on that. And then I say, well, if you have a alternate plan, success in life plan starting now, you'll be ready just in case that happens. Now, hopefully you won't get hurt and you'll play out your career. But what happens if you do, if you don't? So now they get it. They understand that they have to have a backup plan, and that means your education. So we teach them everything they need to know, how to get in school and stay there. And hopefully they will continue to do that over the years, even after they're out of our program. But I'm glad that you brought that up.
Well, every now and then we need to have what I like to call teachable moments, because we can get so many other kind of information to share with us, but we need to find out what are those keys that can help us be successful. And I've been a beneficiary of those relationships and how well they can benefit you. One thing I wanted to do is, if you would, kind of please share your thoughts on being a Super Bowl participant, and also talk a little bit about that season and that Super Bowl run.
Oh my God! I tell you, you're taking me back there, buddy. But I remember the Freezer Bowl when we played San Diego.
Mm-hmm.
That's the game before the actual Super Bowl is announced. And the river, what I remember most about when I got to the stadium, the river was frozen completely solid, and people were driving their cars over the river instead of using the bridge. And that sticks out in my mind more so than anything else. But the thing that drove it all home was, at the end of the game, the announcer says, the Cincinnati Bengals are going to the Super Bowl. And those are the words that I heard. Everything else was muffled. And I knew we were going to the Super Bowl. So when we get there, I mean, I've never seen anything like it. We had more media interviews, more television interviews. Everything was just happening right then and there. And we came from the AFC playoffs to the Super Bowl, and everything changes between those times. Those 2 weeks time, 2 weeks of time between the game, it's just different, guys. And I would like to have as many people as possible experience that, because it's one of the greatest times of my life.
Well, what are a few of the key things that happen? You know, you talked about the interviewing and all those things, but just what are some other things that might have, stood out that, that are memorable for you?
From the Super Bowl?
Yes.
I tell you, being there was the main thing. And what stands out to me is that I was on the sideline before the game, and Diana Ross was standing next to me. She sang the national anthem. And I look over, and here's Diana Ross next door to me. And I said, this is going to be a great game, after this, because it doesn't get any better than this. And she goes out and sings and kicks off the game, and the rest is history, man. That's an experience that I'll never forget as long as I live.
Well, you ended up your career, if I'm not mistaken, with the Atlanta Falcons, correct?
I did. I was traded to the Atlanta Falcons in '83. And played my 10th and final year.
How was that transition, moving from a place that you've been for a while and almost close to home, and then moving down to Atlanta?
I'll tell you, it was exciting to me because I didn't know what to expect coming back home. And, I love Cincinnati. I love my teammates. And then when you're facing them, I learned one thing, that you can be friends after the game. During the game, we got to whoop ass. I'm sorry about that. But you play just like you play anybody else. You don't think about the relationships that you have with these guys, and they do the same thing to you. Anthony Munoz and Max and Kenny Anderson and all those guys, man. It was just like, we got to beat them. And we ended up not beating them. But it was a great experience.
Well, we got maybe about a minute and a half before we go to our final break. I'm gonna mention a name, and I just want you to, to kind of give me your thoughts on this individual. The gentleman's name is Ken Riley.
Oh my God, Ken Riley was like the godfather of Cincinnati Bengals. Everybody respected Ken because of his work ethic, and he didn't stop. And he taught me some lessons that went on, through my career and off. And it was basically doing the same thing that Coach Major said: cultivate the relationships. When you tell people you're going to be someplace, be there, on time. And those are some of the things that you knew one day this guy would be in the Hall of Fame because of his work ethic and because of just the way he was. But I love the guy, man. He was just a great teammate, a great friend, and it's unfortunate that he hasn't been selected for the Hall of Fame, but he will one day. I do believe that.
Well, the reason I brought his name up, I had a chance to get to know him. I was working at Florida A&M, and he is just well revered there. But he was great to talk to. He sat in the capacity that I was in when I was there serving as athletic director, and he gave me some good insight on how to navigate not only Tallahassee but also Florida A&M. Well, what we're going to do right now, Gary, we're going to put a pin in this third quarter, get ready for the fourth, and we're going to give our sponsors the time to share some information with our guests.
Okay. See you in a minute.
SGECOVIDsolutions.com is paving the way forward for a safer city government delivering cutting-edge biosecurity and biosafety protocols developed internationally by top virologists and scientists using an all-natural cleaning solution, killing COVID-19 on contact like no other product on the international market. For more information, please call 1-800-281-9080 or visit us online at SGECOVIDsolutions.com. Let SGECOVIDsolutions.com provide innovative rapid facilities testing and world-class state-of-the-art biorisk safety protocols for all of your coronavirus needs. Call 1-800-281-9080 or visit us online at SGECOVIDsolutions.com.
Hi, I'm Q Talicia Garrett. I am here to introduce our New South Development and Training Outreach Hour every Tuesday at 2 p.m., giving you information on how to become a part of the programs through USDA and Farm Service Agency. We can be reached at 678-779-9468. We can also be found online at newsouthoutreach.com.
Welcome back to the fourth quarter with Mr. Gary Burley, and we're going to go ahead and try and see if we can finish this fourth quarter strong. Gary, earlier I talked to you about, your time in Cincinnati, and then I also talked to you about the time at Atlanta. But in totality, other than maybe talking about the Super Bowl, what are some of the most memorable moments that you have from your 10-year career in the NFL?
Well, I tell you, the Super Bowl was one of the top, but playing with a team playing with my teammates and the relationships that we developed, that was probably one of the most important things. I retired in '83, and I still talk to those guys on a weekly basis. That is something that's so special to me.
Well, I think that those are the things that when I have an opportunity to be around, it's not just former professional athletes, but former athletes that have worked hard and have had to, sacrifice and support each other. A lot of times those relationships are lifelong, and it's great to hear that those are the same things that you're experiencing with your teammates across the board. One thing I would like to ask you is, though, if you could share with this, what were some of the things that assisted you from transitioning from professional sports to life without sports?
Well, like I said, the relationships that I cultivated coming through while I was playing ended up being some of the things that I wanted to do after I got done playing. I wanted to be in advertising. I wanted to be in marketing. And I learned through internships and relationships how to do that. And that's what I've done since my retirement. is work in the advertising industry and also sales and marketing. And that's what I love to do. And I learned that through my relationships that I cultivated while I was playing TV internships and things of this nature.
During our earlier conversation prior to starting the interview, and I talked with you about, the advocacy work that you do. If you don't mind, if you would maybe just kind of share some of the challenges you've had, but then also, too, how you've turned those challenges into serving and serve as an advocate for those different organizations.
I'm sorry, you broke up on me a little bit.
I said we talked earlier prior to the interview about, some of the challenges you've had and you've overcome, but you've also turned into an advocate for those same challenges that you experienced. And I was just saying, if you would share a little bit about those programs that you serve as an advocate for.
Well, I tell you, one day I noticed that my knee had swollen up, and no matter what I did for it, it didn't. The swelling didn't go down. So my wife suggested that I go see my doctor, and once I got there, the doctor told me to go see an oncologist, and I was diagnosed with cancer. So you can imagine, after 10 years in the National Football League and life after football, somebody tells you that you got cancer, and the first thing you do is you freak out. And after that, I learned that the only way I'm going to get through this is to do exactly what the doctors say and make myself aware of what's going on. So every treatment that I went through chemotherapy for a year. It didn't get any better. It didn't get any worse. So my doctor approached me and said, we're going to do a bone marrow transplant. And what we got to do is find you a donor. And I'm going like, oh, my God. So I fell on my knees and start praying. Then I get this phone call, and the doctor tells me that we found out that you could use your own stem cells. So I didn't have to have a donor. So I had the bone marrow transplant, and I started getting better, and the cancer went into remission. But during the chemotherapy treatment, I developed something called neuropathy. And I tell you, this was in 2014. And in 2022, I'm still suffering with neuropathy. So my lovely wife, tells me that there's this new treatment out there and I need to investigate it. So I did, and ended up going to this treatment that, like I said, from 2014 to 2022, I had no way of making this work. And I took this, after 5 treatments, I'm dancing again. So I've developed a marketing campaign for people that have cancer, people that have neuropathy, and kidney transplant patients like I am myself, to help them find a way to get better. And that's what we do.
How has sports helped you out with maybe being able to compartmentalize what you're dealing with, come up with a game plan, and then execute?
It teaches you how to develop a game plan. You know the important things about what you're trying to present, and you just put those in chronological order, and that's it. You know, that's your program. And once I developed that presentation, it's like when I taught my kids in ProStar. You got that 2-minute resume? That's what I do all the time. 2 minutes. Get every point across within 2 minutes. And that's how I make my presentation today.
Well, if they start early, particularly your kids in ProStar, having an understanding of that, and a lot of people, I think you might have mentioned it, but they call it that elevator speech. You know, you need to be able to get your point across, be clear, be succinct, and you need to be able to do that within the time it would take you to go from maybe the first floor to the 10th floor, because that's about the only amount of time you're going to have to get somebody's attention.
I love it. That's the same way I was taught.
Yeah. Well, if you would, we talked a lot about Pro Start Academy, but if you would maybe go into a little bit more detail since we're in the fourth quarter, just kind of share some insight and maybe just share with individuals on how they can be of support of your efforts as well.
Of course. Our website is www.prostartacademy.com, and we have a relationship with the Boys and Girls Club here in Birmingham, and we will start our camp in June. Runs for 6 to 10 weeks, and every Saturday. And if people want to come on our website and donate, there's an opportunity to do that. If you want to get your kids involved, there's an opportunity to do that as well. All they do is register and become a part of the team. There's no cost to it.
And where would the camp be located?
It'll be at the AG Gaston Boys and Girls Club here in Birmingham.
Okay. Now, I know a little earlier this week we talked about the American Flag Football League, and I think you were looking to try and get engaged with that. If you would, maybe just share something with some of our viewers that are not aware of this organization.
Oh, wow. I tell you what, a friend of mine who is the director of the program here in Alabama called me about a couple of months ago, and he asked about my support in helping him develop the league here in Birmingham. So we started working on it, and we got with the mayor of Birmingham, Randall Woodman, and he suggested that we talk to Parks and Recreation, Birmingham City School System, and what we're going to do is develop a showcase at Miles College. And I don't know if you knew this or not, but flag football is now a world game sport. So it's perfect timing for us here with what we want to do. And so we're reaching out to a lot of people and developing these teams and give kids an opportunity not only play football, but also gain scholarships through this program. And that's our plan.
Well, in looking at the material, it looks like it has a lot of synergy with Pro Start because of what they're teaching them as it relates to the ACT, SAT, and clearinghouse and all those things. So in the conversation that you and I had as well, intramural sports, particularly intramural football, is big across the country. And starting out these young people early enough, it can be a feeder system for the pro league. And also, too, when you take a look at collegiate sports, they're always trying to find ways to increase opportunities for female athletes to participate. And who knows, just as it's picked up by the World Games, it might be something that might become a part of NCAA sports.
Of course. And that's what the plan is, to introduce kids to football through different ways with our program.
With all the technology that the kids have nowadays, how hard is it for you to get the students to participate in your Pro Start camps that happen over the summer?
You broke up on me a little bit. Would you repeat that?
Yeah, no problem. I was saying, with our kids nowadays, young people, they're not as inclined to get involved with camps and sports. So what do you do, or how do you approach it to maximize the participation in your camps?
I'm sorry, man. I got sick.
No problem. Are you okay? With ProStart, and you've been an awesome guest. And what I want you to do is go ahead and take care of yourself. And with our fans and our viewers, I would like to wish a happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there. And we will see you next time on Sound the Horne Sports Show.
Take care, brother. Thank you.
Welcome to Sound the Horne Sports Show. I'm so excited to host this groundbreaking program that will broaden the Jackson sports scene's awareness regionally and nationally. My goal is to highlight sports in Jackson, the state of Mississippi, and nationally by utilizing my 25 years of Division I athletic administration knowledge, and my guests will be experienced leaders in sports. The guests on the show will share a behind-the-scenes, unique, and informative glance of the world of sports. Please join me every Monday and Friday from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. on WeBelieveDigital.com.